welcome back to hopefully a significantly shorter video. God, I hope. The white set review. We've got some white cards to go through, and let's get started with Academic Probation. Academic Probation is 1 and a white for a sorcery lesson at rare. Choose one. Choose a non-land card name. Opponents can't cast spells with the chosen name until your next turn. Or choose target non-land permanent. Until your next turn, it can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. So the first one, you're not doing that. That's a constructed plant. The second part is not a horrible card. We did have a card way back when called Inaction Injunction, which was 1 and a blue, and it detained a creature, which is exactly what this is, just not using the word detain. It did also draw a card, though. So this is almost like a reverse Inaction Injunction, where you draw this off of a learn, and then you detain a creature and then kill them. This is not a great card. This is, again, another of these lessons that I think you have to be insane to be spending a real pick on this. I'm going to like 6th through 8th pick it, I guess. Maybe even wheel it, because like this is not an amazing lesson, but as long as you have learned stuff and you grab this out of your sideboard and then you use it when it's appropriate. And if you don't use it, at least it didn't take a card in your deck. But that's the thing is we've gone from talking about card slots in your deck being very valuable to draft picks being very valuable. I'm not picking this over a real card ever. So I'm going to wheel this at best. Up next is Ageless Guardian. Ageless Guardian is 1 and a white for a creature spirit soldier. It's a common 1/4. It's a vanilla creature. You're going to pick this up on the wheel. Sometimes you're going to play this. Maybe you'll sideboard it in. Up next is Beaming Defiance. Beaming Defiance is 1 and a white for an instant at common. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains hexproof until end of turn. It's Snakeskin Veil, sort of. Not getting a counter makes this much more like Ranger's Guile, I suppose. It is 2 mana instead of 1 mana. There's a lot of stuff going on here that makes this worse than I would like it to be, but it is still a playable, fine combat trick. Why does white have hexproof? Who knows? Yeah, this is fine, but you can pick this up on the wheel. Up next is Clever Lumamancer. Clever Lumamancer is a single white mana for a creature, human wizard at uncommon. She's an 0/1 with Magecraft. She gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Literal no interest in this card. It's Step Links. It's Crap Dog. What was Crap Dog's name? I don't remember what Crap Dog's name was. This is not a card that I like to play. I didn't play Crap Dog in Zendikar Rising. The hell was its name? I wouldn't play Step Links. This card is not what I want to be playing. There's too much work to make this a card that's even remotely worthwhile. I'm going to F on this card. I don't even want to wheel it. F. Nobody telling me what Crap Dog was. Dang it. Up next is Combat Professor. Combat Professor. Kiln Fiend? No. Kiln Fiend's good and not a dog. Combat Professor is 3... Wait, is Kiln Fiend? Kiln Fiend's the cat, isn't it? Yeah. Combat Professor is 3 and a white. Akum Hellhound. That's Crap Dog. Combat Professor is 3 and a white for a creature, bird, cleric at common. It's a 2/3 flyer. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains vigilance until end of turn. So it is a 3/3 vigilant flyer for 4, which is pretty dang nice. It could make something else vigilant and +1/+0 instead. It doesn't even have to attack to do that, although it probably is attacking. This card seems very solid. I think it's a solid 6th through 8th pick. I guess I need to sort of define my pick orders. First pick is bomb, extraordinarily good card. Second, third pick is typically still extremely good and bomby and removal. Fourth, fifth is like the best utility cards you've ever seen. There's so many other cards I'm picking over this that there's no way it's going to be second, third, or fourth, fifth. So this is 6th through 8th for me, which is still good. It's still good. Defend the Campus. Defend the Campus is 3 and a white for an instant at common. Choose one. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Or destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. It's a Smite the Monstrous that you could main deck a little bit more reliably because it has kind of a cruddy little extra thing onto it that situationally might be good, but you should be able to wheel this. And We're playing best of 3. Don't put this in your main deck. Put this in your sideboard. Side it in when it's relevant. Up next is Detention Vortex. Detention Vortex is a single white mana for an enchantment aura at uncommon. Enchant non-land permanent. Enchanted permanent can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. Pay 3 to destroy Detention Vortex. Only your opponents may activate this ability, and only as a sorcery. This card is terrible. This card's absolutely extraordinarily bad. It essentially says, pay a white, target creature can't block this turn. And then your opponent blows this up. This card is terrible. I don't want to play it. I'm on an F. Yeah, I'm on an F for this. F for Detention Vortex. No interest. Up next is Devastating Mastery. Devastating Mastery is 2 white for a sorcery at rare. You may pay 2 white rather than pay this spell's mana cost. If the 2 white cost was paid, an opponent chooses up to 2 non-land permanents they control and returns them to their owner's hand. Destroy all non-land permanents. You are never casting this for 2 white. That is a terrible idea. 2 white for a Wrath is fine. You know, Wraths are somewhat okay and limited. I've slowly gotten a little bit more okay with Wraths. You obviously have to play around it. You have to play knowing that you might draw it, or ideally having it in your hand already so you know that you are going to play this at some point so you can sandbag your creatures back a little bit. So this is like a second, third pick. Wraths are just very, very good. You know, the only cruddy spot is where you don't know where it is in your deck, and so you play out all your creatures, and then, oops, here's your Devastating Mastery, and you're in a situation where you might want to use it. Yeah, second, third pick for Devastating Mastery. Wraths are good, even if they cost 6 mana. Up next is Dueling Coach. Dueling Coach is 3 and a white for a creature human monk at uncommon. It's a 2/2. When Dueling Coach enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Pay 4 and a white, tap, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Obvious build around. Silver Quill does have the intention of wanting a whole bunch of counters. That's kind of one of their overarching archetypes, and this is going to help you out. It's a 4 mana 3/3 at worst, and then it's a mana sink. We had this with don't remember the card name. I think it was in a core set. It was in some set, and it was basically this card, and it was very good. And I think this card's going to be very good as well. This is around like a 4th, 5th pick for me, I think. There's a chance that it could be a 2nd, 3rd. You are taking a little bit of a flyer that you're going to build around this on 2nd, 3rd, but I'm going to go 4th, 5th pick for Dueling Coach. I think it's very good and shouldn't be that hard to build around. Tempered Veteran, yeah, that was it. Up next is Eager First Year. Eager First Year is 1 and a white for a creature human wizard at common. It's a 2/2 with Magecraft, gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Big whoop. It's filler. You should be able to wheel this, no problem. It's just not a card worth spending too much of a real pick on it, but you'll play it. Up next is Elite Spellbinder. Elite Spellbinder is 2 and a white for a creature human cleric at rare. It's a 3/1 flyer. When Elite Spellbinder enters the battlefield, look at target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it for as long as that card remains exiled. Its owners may play it. A spell cast this way costs 2 more to cast. 3/1 flyer for 3 is fine. I've played those. I've been fine with those. They die pretty handily, but they're fine. And they're gonna, ever so slightly speed bump your opponent by taking one of their cards and making it just a little bit harder to cast than normal. I think 4th through 5th pick is right about where I would place this. It's not a bomb. It's not a card that I'm picking removal over. Don't get rarity blinded here. 4th through 5th seems pretty fine for me. Up next is Exfil. Exfil is 2 and a white for an instant at common. Exile target tapped creature. It's great. Creatures get tapped. It is 1-for-1 removal, so I'm not going to go nuts on these anymore. I'm not going to pick these ludicrously highly anymore. I'm not going to play 6 copies of these anymore. That's not the way that I'm approaching limited Magic for the moment being, based on the success I've had with Kaldheim. That said, you still need some removal, and this is very efficient. Instant speed. It slightly misses out in that it doesn't do anything else for you. It is 1-for-1. but it's great. This is like 4th through 5th pick for the first one, and then it should go down from there. Up next is Guiding Voice. Guiding Voice is a single white mana for a sorcery at common. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and learn. And this is an example of why I'm just not stoked on learn. This card's not bad. Like, it's not literally unplayable. But if I'm putting this in my deck, because haha, when I draw it, I get a counter, and then I go and get my 3/2, and then I can cast a 3/2 for full cost. Did I get there? I did something. I'm not saying I did nothing, but I don't know how much I did. So single white mana for a sorcery speed +1/+1 counter and learn is probably playable, but I don't want to spend a real pick on this. Like, there's so many powerful cards in this set. There's so many powerful cards in limited Magic that I don't know that I'm playing a sorcery speed counter plus draw a mediocre lesson. So I'm going to go on the wheel with this. This is not the learn card that I have always dreamed of. Up next is Leonardo Lightscribe. Leonardo Lightscribe is 1 and a white for a creature cat cleric at rare. It's a 2/2 with Magecraft. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Not a bad Magecraft payoff. It'd be amazing if it was counters. It's a rare. I don't honestly know why it's not counters, but it's still fine. This is a pick that I'm pretty happy with. I'm going like definitely not first. Definitely not second, third. I think I'm going to go 4th, 5th on Leonardo Lightscribe here. It's not a bomb. It doesn't blow the game wide open, but it's got some serious value to it. Up next is Vinda, Student's Advocate. Vinda is 2 and a white for a legendary creature bird advisor at Mythic. It's a 2/3 flyer. You can pay 0. This is a bomb. This is not a bomb by any shape or stretch of the imagination. You have to draw this card. Play this card. You have to have drawn and played a whole bunch of other creatures and have gone wide. Then your hand must still have a whole bunch of spells left in it. That requires some sort of mythical hand that never empties, which I don't have. You can trigger this multiple times, but this is not a bomb. This is not a first pick. Vinda, pay 0. You may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If that spell doesn't target a creature you control, it costs 8 more to cast this way. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Activate only once each turn. 2/3 flyer for 3. Okay, sure. I can cast an instant or sorcery. Costs a ludicrous amount of mana if it's not a combat trick, essentially. It is kind of like a budget feather. I don't remember ever doing anything with feather in limited. I remember feather being pretty meh in limited. It's a 2/3 flyer for 3. You know, at worst, we're looking 6th through 8th. At absolute worst. And I guess all we have to do is play some combat tricks. And we've already seen some combat tricks. So I think we can pump this up to like a 2/3. Like a 2nd, 3rd pick. Let's go 2nd, 3rd pick. You do have to build around this, I think. And, you know, maybe you do get to a point where that 8 mana cost is doable to use removal or something. So yeah, let's go for a 2nd, 3rd pick on Vinda here. Up next is Pilgrim of the Ages. Pilgrim of the Ages is 2 and a white for a creature spirit at common. It's a 2/1. When Pilgrim of the Ages enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic Plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Pay 6, return it from your graveyard to your hand. 2/1 for 3, and I get a Plains into my hand. Okay. It's a spirit. It's relevant. Pay 6, and we get it back. Remember when we used to have like Reassembling Skeleton as an infinite blocker? I think you can wheel this. I think it's fine. I think it's fine, but I think you can wheel this pretty easily. Up next is Pillar Drop Rescuer. Pillar Drop Rescuer is 4 and a white for a creature spirit cleric at common. It's a flying 2/2. When Pillar Drop Rescuer enters the battlefield, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah, this is my preview card. It's not great. Returning to your hand sucks. 5 mana for a 2/2 flyer is not my favorite thing in the world. I think you can wheel this no problem. And I think you play like 1. It's a spirit, so that's relevant. But I think you can wheel this no problem. We will obviously get way more wheel cards in the mono color than we will in the dual color. Up next is Professor of Symbology. Professor of Symbology is 1 and a white for a creature core cleric at uncommon. It's a 2/1. When Professor of Symbology enters the battlefield, learn. This one I like. Here's a learn card that I like, because this is literally Fisher Wizard. Literally Fisher Wizard. And maybe we get to go grab a lesson. So maybe it's even a slightly better Fisher Wizard. Still, Fisher Wizard is not insane. There's no way I'm 2nd, 3rd picking this, but I'll 4th, 5th pick it. Like I'm picking bombs over this. I'm picking removal over this. There's no chance I'm 2nd, 3rd, but I'll 4th, 5th pick this, I think. And then, hey, after I have picked this up, now I am much more interested in picking up some lessons, but I'm never in a billion years picking lessons over having gotten these first. And that's the way I'm approaching the format, and you can't stop me from doing that. Up next is Reduced to Memory. Reduced to Memory is 1 white for a sorcery lesson at uncommon. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. So when exactly are we getting to the lessons that we're happy about? Because we're still not there. Like, obviously, if you pick this somewhere and you have picked this and not wasted a pick on it, and you put it into your sideboard and it is the lesson that you have, then you can draw it and it is free at that point. And then perhaps you downgrade a very scary thing into a 3/2. But we talk about decision trees a lot, and we have gone several branches into that decision tree to make this card good. I'm going to wheel this card. I'm not even going to 6th through 8th pick this card. I'm going to wheel this card. And even then, I'm not happy about it. Up next is Secret Rendezvous. Secret Rendezvous is 1 white for a sorcery at uncommon. You and target opponent each draw 3 cards. No. Hell no. Do not give your opponent draws for free with them spending resources, or no resources. This is an F. Up next is Semester's End. Semester's End is 3 and a white for an instant at rare. Exile any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers you control. At the beginning of your next end step, return each of them to the battlefield under its owner's control. Each of them enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it if it's a creature, and an additional loyalty counter on it if it's a planeswalker. I like this, and I think this might actually be pretty dang good. It has the issue of being a terrible top deck when you don't have a board, being terrible when you don't have a board, being literally unplayable when you don't have a board, which is going to hold it back a little bit. But this is going to shut some doors. You have to be very careful with this, especially on Arena. Do not cast this in your opponent's end step. You will not have creatures on your turn. You must cast this in your opponent's second main phase. But this has a lot of flexibility and a lot of good use cases, right? Like you can block a bunch of things on your opponent's turn and flicker them out. They don't die. Your opponent has tapped out. They come back bigger. You get to attack back in. Obviously, it dodges Wraths, which is literally unimportant in grading because that is pitting one rare against another rare in a very specific situation. But I think this can actually do some work. I don't know where exactly I'm picking it, because the issue, of course, is that you're going to need to 1st or 2nd pick it to ever have a chance to play it for the first several weeks. I'm going to start out 4th, 5th, I think, because I really want to give this a go and see how it works. I think it's got some interesting use cases. Up next is Show of Confidence. Show of Confidence is 1 and a white For an instant at uncommon, when you cast this spell, copy it for each other instant and sorcery spell you've cast this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains vigilance until end of turn. Single counter, instant speed. It's not the worst. Vigilance at instant speed, kind of stupid. I think this will be incredibly difficult to pop off. So, Adam, I think the difference that we're having is this is still a limited format. This is still a limited format with 129 creatures in it, just like Kaldheim. You don't have more instants and sorceries in your deck than you have creatures. You don't. You absolutely do not. Study plus any cheap spell equals 5 triggers. What's study? I don't know what study is, but at this point you've now, like, you mean learn cards, but you still have to pay for the cards that you've gotten out of your sideboard. Like, I don't think you're storming off in this set. Study is the 1 mana spell. There's another 2 mana lessons. These are all commons. But if you're not playing creatures, what are you putting the counters on? I'm wheeling this card. I don't think it's very good. I think it's cute if you can try to go off with it, but at the end of the day, this is limited. You are playing a deck that has at least 10, 11, 12, 13 creatures in it. You aren't going to have infinite mana and infinite cards in hand and infinite instants and sorceries. I think it's incredibly difficult to go off with this. So I'm going to wheel this, and I'm probably just not going to play it. Up next is Sparring Regiment. Sparring Regiment is 2 and a white for an enchantment at rare. When Sparring Regiment enters the battlefield, learn. Whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature and untap it. This can get out of hand. This can really get out of hand. Yeah, I'd much rather have Grape Shot than this too, right? Like, so you go off with this, and then your opponent goes Doomblade? Kill your creature? Enjoy all those spells that you cast to get all those counters. Yeah, this card can go nuts. Doesn't even do nothing because it learns, so at least you're rummaging, if not grabbing a lesson. And then you cast this before your attack. You attack, bam, there's your vigilance encounter. This is so cheap that I think this is just a first pick. You distribute the counters anywhere you want, but you have to put all those spells on the stack first. So sure, you could spread them all out, which means you don't have your gigantic flyer or whatever. Like, I'm off of it. Yeah, I'm going to first pick Sparring Regiment. Up next is Star Pupil. Star Pupil is a single white mana for a creature, human, wizard at common. It's a 0/0. Star Pupil enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. When Star Pupil dies, put its counters on target creature you control. Wheel this card. I don't want to play this card, really. Isn't that what Black-White wants to do? Black-White wants counters. But you could just play better cards. Yeah, I don't want this card. This requires so much work. Super vulnerable to all that work that you put into it. Yeah, no interest. I can wheel this card if I want it, and I don't really want it. Up next is Stonebinder's Familiar. Stonebinder's Familiar is a single white mana for a creature, spirit, dog, at uncommon. It's a 1/1. Whenever one or more creatures are put into exile during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Stonebinder's Familiar. This ability triggers only once each turn. Again, like, this is the uncommon payoff for Lorehold's part of Lorehold's thing, I guess, right? Because you're not always returning things from the graveyard or taking things from graveyard into exile. Yeah, I don't want this card. I've got this on an F. Way too much work. Just play better cards. Play better cards. Stonerise Spirit is 1 and a white for a creature, spirit, bird at common. It's a 1/2 flyer. Pay 4. Exile a card from your graveyard. Target creature gains flying until end of turn. No. Maybe. It's a spirit. It's a 2 mana 1/2 flyer. I always underestimate 2 mana 1/2 flyers that do something. So I can't underestimate this. 4, exile any type of card from my graveyard. Give anything flying until end of turn. This is probably okay. There's no way it's a 4th through 5th pick. I'll 6th through 8th pick it, I think. I think I'd even be happier picking this up on the wheel, like pack 2, pack 3. Yeah, no, this does a fine thing. I think what I got into there was being like, oh, I don't want to do the lore hold thing, but don't do the lore hold thing. Just don't care about the lore hold thing. Just exile a card and give something flying and smash in. So yeah, let's go 6th through 8th pick for Stonerise Spirit. Up next is Strict Proctor. Strict Proctor is 1 and a white for a creature spirit cleric at rare. It's a 1/3 flyer. Whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to trigger, counter that ability unless its controller pays 2. It's not bad. I never stoked on a 1/3 flyer for 2, but they're not bad. It's not exactly a vanilla 1/3 flyer. Oh, is it symmetrical? Whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to trigger. It's symmetrical. Oh, yeah. No. This for me is virtually an F because I will never pick this high enough to see it, because people will pick it because best case scenario mentality, it's a rare, etc. And even if I do pick it, there's an exceptionally good chance in the modern era where every card does something on ETB that this screws you over more than it screws your opponents over. So yeah, I'm just going to say F for this card. Realistically, if you get it late, kind of like Tocatli Honor Guard, if you get it late and it does nothing, then you can throw this in out of the sideboard, for example. Does it not counter itself? No, it doesn't have a trigger. Whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to trigger. Its ability is a triggered ability, no, yes, but its triggered ability is not from the permanent entering the battlefield. Its triggered ability is triggering because of the other triggered ability that happened because of the creature entering the battlefield. Can please let D&D be a core set, please. Up next is Study Break. Study Break is 1 and a white for an instant at common. Tap up to 2 target creatures, learn. No. 0 interest. 0 interest in this card. It's Pressure Point. It's Pressure Point. I don't play Pressure Point. Thought I liked tappers. I like freezers. I like creatures that tap. I do not like Pressure Point one bit. Yeah, I'll put this card on the wheel. I think you got to be a very specific deck to want this. It's 1.5 pressure points, yeah. Up next is Thunderous Orator. Thunderous Orator is 1 and a white for a creature core wizard at uncommon. It's a 2/2 vigilance. Whenever Thunderous Orator attacks, it gains flying until end of turn if you control a creature with flying. The same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, and Trample. Didn't this used to be a rare? I feel like this effect was always on rares. Yeah, this card's great. Like, 2/2 vigilance for 2 is fine. But then just play black-white and have flying and you're fine. If you get any of the other abilities, cool. But this card's great. This card's second, third? Because you have to build around it, right? You have to get flying, and the others would be ideal. But yeah, let's go second, third pick on this. I think this card's great. And yeah, if you're in black-white, throw counters on it. Up next, we're done white. Bye, YouTube. White. I was ready for this to be 17 hours long, like the first video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all for blue.